Welcome to the podcast. I'm Ben.
I'm Mae.
And I'm Max, and we were had.
Can you believe it?
There are twists and there are turns.
Defleshed is a standard death.
Oh, that's fun.
We were had.
We were.
All right. Today on the pod, we have Greg again.
We do.
But also, we're answering an age-old question legitimately. Are we living in a simulation? In other words, is what we're in real? Is real life real? Or is it a fantasy? What's that line from the Bohemian Rhapsody? What is that song?
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
Yeah.
Yes, that's
You
what
guys don't
Elon
really
Musk
have the,
would sing
Are we not
on the
gonna-
radio.
Are we not going to sing all 8 minutes?
Yes. All right.
Mama.
Easy go. Okay.
We're covering the simulation hypothesis, essentially. Are we living in a simulation? Is this real? Base realities, all that kind of stuff, which goes way back in time. Are you ready?
This is fun.
This
I'm
is
excited.
Fun. Also, I told Ben this on the way over. I was like, I wanted to do a conspiracy, and I was choosing between things. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is like something where scientists, physicists, they're like, at this point, we'll get into it, but like scientists cover it. It's not like a conspiracy theory. It's like something that like has been proven, disproven, and all those kinds of things.
Well, it's
So
also
like,
sort of almost a religious question, or at least a spiritual question.
it's an existential question.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was started by philosophy, and we'll get into that right now. So the simulation hypothesis is a proposal regarding the nature of existence. So the proposal is that all the current existence that humans know, including the Earth and the rest of the universe, could in fact be an artificial simulation, such as a computer simulation.
So like we're the Sims characters. Is that-
Exactly. Literally that. Like people leave us in the house and then we just they remove the door and they light it on fire.
And is part of the, not
Wait,
to jump
what?
ahead.
That's what crazy people do in The Sims. They would
okay.
leave their sim in the house, literally delete the door, and then they would light it on fire.
If I found out that my kid was doing that, I'd be like, well, there's a child psychologist with your name on it, my dude. Because what the hell? That's insane.
Oh, because what we're doing in this simulation is way better.
True.
So
Is part of the,
Oh, yes, Ben.
not to jump ahead, but is part of the idea that there is a puppet master or puppet masters, or
yeah,
is
so
that
is
kind of a...
It's jumping ahead
Nancy
a bit, but
Pelosi.
when you get into it, it's not that anyone here is a puppet master. It's that somebody bigger,
some sort of god.
created a simulation. I guess what we would view as a god level power.
Right.
I mean, Rick and Morty has done this a bunch, and actually, there's one whole episode about it where he just creates whole tiny universes to power his battery on his fucking car.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. So some versions of this theory rely on the development of a simulated reality, proposed technology that would be able to convince its inhabitants that the simulation was quote unquote real. So there's a long philosophical and scientific history to the underlying thesis that reality is an illusion. This skeptical hypothesis can be traced back to antiquity, ancient times. For example, the butterfly dream of Zhuangzi, the Indian philosophy of Maya, the ancient Greek philosophy, Anarchus and Mononymous liken existing things to a scene painting and suppose them to resemble the impressions experienced in sleep or madness. So even like Aztec philosophical texts theorize that the world was a painting or a book written by the Teotl.
And with some of these theories, I know like with the Indian philosophy, kind of almost like the movie The Matrix, there's a way of achieving enlightenment, right? There's a way of...
You can see the ripple or something. There's always a way that you can like turn around and see the full real, or like
right, because Maya means like illusion. Maya means like the material world.
And
so
let's get into a couple of these ancient kind of theories. So in the Zhuangzi one, suddenly Zhao awakens. He feels for his legs and the ancient Chinese text Zhuangzi, written by Taoist philosopher Zhuang Zhao. The story goes that Zhuang Zhao had a dream that he was a butterfly with no recollection of his human form. He'd explore the world with his erratic, fluttering pattern unique to butterflies, swimming through the air without a care in the world, until he awakens. He feels for his legs and pinches his skin just hard enough for it to not to be too painful. It was all a dream. Zhuang Zhao is human after all. Or is he? Could it be the reverse, that he's a butterfly dreaming as a human?
Interesting.
That's crazy.
Okay.
I mean, we've all had those dreams where it's so fucking real. You wake up and you're like, how am I not in high school with piss in my pants right now? You know what I mean?
my only counter to it is that we dream different things every night. I mean, maybe there's a recurring.
What'd you say?
My only counter to that is that we dream different things every night while our life remains consistent and linear.
Right.
I also have had a lot of dreams where it's deja vu shit, like dreams, and then 6 months later, I would be like,
Same.
I have seen this moment in my dreams. And that's not even, I'm not even doing a bit. Like I would like have a dream and that's like, I'd be like, that's weird that I like have a hamper with my mom. And like 6 months later, it's like that exact moment.
Yeah, it's weird.
Wearing those clothes, and it's like it's not even a coincidence.
But so the argument for this is basically saying that this is the dream state, and
then when
we go to bed and we have like the actual dreams, that's like us blipping into the actual reality.
Ooh, I like the use of blip, and yes that is the theory.
What makes more sense to me would be more of an Inception-y thing, where it's like dreams within dreams within dreams. So like this is a dream of a larger consciousness.
That's cool.
Right.
That's an interesting kind of thing. And then Joseph Gordon-Levitt is somehow involved.
He's involved.
Yeah. That's a movie that, similar to Parasite, I went into, fell asleep in the movie theater, woke up and said, not for me.
So that was a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream.
That's pretty meta.
During Inception.
You wake up at the end of Parasite and you're like, this movie is not funny anymore.
But everybody I was with was like, that was the best movie ever. And I was like,
okay, well, first of all, that weird voice is offensive because I was with you. Ben was like,
I'm a fucking idiot. I have bad taste.
That's what he said.
I admitted to having bad taste. That's right.
Let me tell you something. May's eyes were redder than the devil's dick that day. She was drinking.
I think mouth open. I think it was like
drooling, like literally, cartoonishly.
I was catching flies and I was hammered at the movie theaters. And you guys were completely sober. If I'm
we
not
were loving
mistaken.
the film.
It was a wonderful movie.
All right, so the other most famous of these kind of old theories or whatever is Philosophy 101, Plato's allegory of the cave. You guys familiar with this?
Not
in
really.
the allegory, Socrates, it's presented, this allegory is presented as a conversation between Socrates, who was his mentor, and some other Gantes or some other fuck. Socrates describes a group of people who have lived chained to the wall of a cave all their lives, facing a blank wall. The people watch shadows projected on that wall from objects passing in front of a fire behind them and giving names to these shadows. The shadows are the prisoner's reality, but are not accurate representations of the real world. So 3 higher levels exist: the natural sciences, mathematics, geometry, and deductive logic, and the theory of forms. So it's like these people, all they're seeing, and that is their reality. And that's also the idea of, well, I guess it is your reality. This is our reality.
Yeah, right.
I always had that problem with The Matrix. I was like, don't wake me up. Leave me in like that.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's another great question.
You wake up and you're wearing rags under fucking ground, getting yoked by fucking robots. No thanks. Leave me in the reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that you could also apply that to just like day-to-day things. Like if someone is delusional but they're happy, do they want to? Does it matter?
Yeah.
Right.
Ignorance is bliss.
It is.
Unless they're like, murdering people in their happiness rage or something like that. But other than that,
if they're happy,
why ruin that?
I think I might have talked about this on the pod before, but have you guys seen the Ryan Reynolds movie Voices?
No.
Oh my God, it's so good. So basically the premise is that he's a serial killer, but he doesn't even like realize it. He's in this like manic state, and then he starts taking his pills, and then when he like opens his eyes from sleep, you see it from his point of view, and you see like his actual apartment, and there's like body parts everywhere, there's like shit everywhere in the house. But then when he's in his like shit? But when he's in like his manic state, it looks like the most beautiful apartment you've ever seen. It's decorated, and it's like so then he's like battling with, like, he's like, I don't want to take my I don't want to take my pills because everything sucks when I see reality.
Oh my gosh,
it's a great movie.
I mean, another thing
under the radar.
I mean, to bring that back to real life too is like when like misinterpreted realities are dangerous. Remember that story of those 2 like young women that believed in Slender Man so hard that they sacrificed another young girl to Slender Man?
They tried to kill her, and then she survived.
Oh yeah,
actually.
she did. Yeah. They stabbed her a whole bunch.
That poor. So basically, these 2 girls believed in Slender Man, brought their friend out.
What's Slender Man?
Slender Man was like this online phenomenon. It was like a viral video where like basically it was like this big tall man that would like be behind you places. So these 12-year-old girls believed that was real.
Okay.
And they took their friend out into the woods and tried to stab her to death. She survived, and they obviously went to juvenile detention for as long as they possibly could. I hope that they're still. I don't know how long is an appropriate sentence for that, but whatever. But like, it was like such a crazy story how like you can get so sucked into something, and like that poor girl that got stabbed. I mean, how do you like move on and like make friends after that? I would be like, I don't trust anybody. You guys are gonna fucking sacrifice me to Slender Man.
And just that girl cannot have a good relationship with people after that.
No.
Poor thing. And it just again pinballing off of that is that like the Reddit thread, like the simulation Reddit thread, like discussing this, they shut it down. Like the Reddit the moderators.
Really?
No, not even Reddit itself. The moderators, the people that created that, they shut it down like a year ago. They were like, we're pausing all additions to this because the level of mental illness that this place is perpetuating. Because like people would get so deep into those discussions, fighting, going crazy.
Wow.
That like even the people that created that, they were like, I gotta put a stop to this.
It's like people from 4chan being like, this is a little much.
Yeah, because I went on Reddit. I wanted to see what Redditors were saying about this, and then I went to that page, and they were like, the top post is like, we're done here.
Holy shit, that's serious.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, so let's get philosophical. I wrote that myself.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's do it.
In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom proposed a trilemma. Don't distinguish that from a dilemma. Trilemma's 3. That he called the simulation argument. Despite the name, Bostrom's simulation argument does not directly argue that humans live in a simulation. Instead, Bostrom's trilemma argues that one of 3 unlikely seeming propositions is almost certainly true, which is like, I hate sentences like that.
Right. I know.
So, number 1, the fraction of human-level civilizations that reach a post-human stage, that is, one capable of running high-fidelity ancestor simulations, is very close to 0. Or 2...
sorry, can we backtrack on that? So the fraction of human level civilizations
that reach a post-human stage.
Post-human meaning
okay, so that's
like afterlife?
That means that like the beings that are able to live to an advanced stage so much that they're able to actually create simulations that are able to simulate exactly what's happening
so
here.
Humans are creating the
humans
simulation.
or other like beings that are like somewhere else in the universe that have gotten to that stage that actually create ancestor simulations. So in other words, civilizations that have gone so advanced that they've created simulations to simulate
the lower
the lower existence, them in the past.
Okay, that's one.
Number 2.
So number 1 is that's very close to 0. So number 1 is that's very unlikely. Okay.
So number 2, the fraction of post-human civilizations that are interested in running simulations of their evolutionary history or variations thereof is very close to 0.
Okay.
Or 3, the fraction of all people with our kind of experiences that are living in a simulation is very close to 1.
I need this in English.
So the trilemma points out that a technologically mature post-human civilization would have enormous computing power.
Yeah.
If even a tiny percentage of them were to run ancestor simulations, that is high-fidelity simulations of ancestral life, that would be indistinguishable from reality to the stimulated ancestor. The total number of simulated ancestors, or sims, in the universe, or multiverse if it exists, would greatly exceed the total number of actual ancestors.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're saying even there's a small fraction of a chance that some higher level being, some advanced civilization was able to create this and also was interested in it, then it would be a simulation.
Right. Okay. So you're saying my grandma is fake.
Also your grandpa.
Also my grandpa, both fake.
Bostrom goes on to use a type of anthropic reasoning to claim that if the third proposition is the one of those things, that 3 that is true, and almost all people live in simulations, then humans are almost certainly living in a simulation.
Oh. Huh.
That's sorry, it's just dense.
So what this means basically, and this is what we get to. Remember when Elon Musk came out and was talking about base realities and shit, and it's like we're almost certainly not living in a base reality. It's almost definitely a simulation.
Wow.
Basically, what that means is that there is one base reality or one high-level civilization that made it to that point and created a bunch of fucking simulations.
Okay.
That's the human term. That makes sense. The English term.
Okay, I understand now.
So further proof that we live in a matrix of sorts and not what would be described as the original or base reality, according to Elon Musk, is how cool video games are these days. So in 2016, he explained 40 years ago we had Pong, 2 rectangles and a dot. Now, 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D with millions playing simultaneously. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, then the games will be indistinguishable from reality, even if that rate of advancement drops by 1,000 from what it is now. It's a given that we're clearly on a trajectory that we're going to have games that are indistinguishable from reality. It would seem to follow that the odds that we're in a base reality is 1 in billions. In defense of that, I remember playing video games back when I was a kid and being like, this is cool, this is amazing. And then have you ever played one of those video games now? You're like, this is disgusting.
Of course, we can make it look... I recently played a video game, an NBA video game, and it's true. I mean, they're completely realistic.
It's insane.
Having said that, the characters don't have feelings. It just looks real.
We're going to get into that. It's like the final argument is if you're able to create a simulated reality with conscious beings. That is the final level of that advancement.
Wow.
And not only that, but you would need the video games to have consciousness, to have feelings just like us, but also be unaware of the fact that we are controlling them.
Well, and no video game character knows that they're being controlled.
But they don't know anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
it's like code.
But if
I don't get why. I guess what I'm saying is I don't really get why, if we are a simulation, why we don't know our masters.
Because if it's a simulation that advanced, you would have no idea that you're in the simulation.
It just seems like a lot of random rules. Okay. Anyway,
that's a good. And you would agree more with Kipping. So Kipping versus Musk.
I'm a Kipping man.
I've
always said that about myself.
So obviously he said that thing in the 2016 press conference, and then Kipping said Musk is right if you assume propositions 1 and 2 of the trilemma are false. But how can you assume that? He says. He's an astronomer. David Kipping of Columbia University. Heard of it? But how can you assume that? You know, that the idea that it's close to zero, that's false. So to get a better handle on Bostrom's simulation argument, Kipping decided to resort to Bayesian reasoning. We all know Bayesian reasoning.
Of course, yeah.
I was going to explain that here, but I chose not to because it's like, okay, how deep into each one of these rabbit holes can we go? I read a lot of different articles, and even I was like, okay, I hope it's a simulation because I don't want to do this again.
Oh my God, yeah.
So he began by turning the trilemma into a dilemma. He collapsed propositions 1 and 2 into a single statement because in both cases, the final outcome is that there are no simulations. Thus, the dilemma pits a physical hypothesis, there are no simulations, against the simulation hypothesis, there is a base reality and there are simulations too.
Jesus.
So you just assign a prior probability to each of these models, Kipping says. We just assume the principle of indifference, which is the default assumption when you don't have any data or leanings either way. So each hypothesis gets a prior probability of 1/2, much as if one were to flip a coin to decide a wager.
Oh, it is Bayesian statistics. I studied a little bit in math in college. Basically, it has to do with conditional probabilities, essentially probabilities of things happening, assuming other things happening.
So when I said we all know that as a bit,
you were being serious?
And Mae and
I was like,
I didn't realize it was the same base because I'm usually
fools. You were keeping that in your back pocket.
I'm usually accustomed to it being statistics, not. I think it was using a different word.
To
reasoning.
Oh my God.
The next stage of the analysis required thinking about.
Go on,
dork.
Look at this little mush ball over here. Boy, oh boy, do I wish he was with us. Greg is in the corner of the room in a chair.
And you don't know where the blanket ends and Greg begins.
I love that blanket because it's a Greg blanket.
It is.
And also, shout out to YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you for all the nice comments about Greg. You're not alone. Every week my dad texts me and goes, that Greg, he's the fucking star of the show. He goes, more Greg. He goes, put him on the fucking flyer. put him on the cover photo. And you know what? I updated the cover photo. This week's episode, you'll notice Greg is on it.
He's important.
He's important.
Sleep.
So then, snake. The next stage of the analysis required thinking about porous realities, those that can generate other realities, and nulliparous porous. Realities.
Jeez, my God.
If you comment and you say I'm mispronouncing things, good for you.
I don't think that's going to be the comment. I think the comment's going to be, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, what on earth was that?
So non-Paris are those that cannot simulate
you
offspring realities.
If somebody asked me, what was your podcast about this week, I'd say, huh.
Okay, it's going to get less dense when we go from here. So that we were living in a nulliparous universe would... Sorry. Okay, so if the physical hypothesis was true, then the probability that we were living in a nulliparous universe would be easy to calculate. It would be 100%. Nulliparous reality being that those that cannot simulate offspring realities. Kipping then showed that even in the simulation hypothesis, most of the simulated realities would be nulliparous. That is because as simulations spawn more simulations, the computing resources available to each subsequent generation dwindles to the point where the vast majority of realities will be those that do not have the computing power necessary to simulate offspring realities that are capable of hosting a conscious being.
Is it sort of like I'm imagining it like a blockchain almost, where like one simulation relies on another simulation, relies on another simulation, so you can't like go back and rewrite code.
Yes, and that's the Bayesian thing. That is.
And this is so convoluted and so complicated. This is a problem. I mean, this is the old Ben. What's his name? The
Kirschenbaum.
No, the
Shapiro?
The Ben Shapiro way of arguing, where you say so many smart words that people are just like, okay, I guess, okay, fine.
Indubitably.
Indubitably.
So plug all these into a Bayesian formula. I said Bayesian, but I guess that was wrong. And out comes the answer. The posterior probability that we are living in base reality is almost the same.
Is it really necessary to say posterior instead of just... Yeah, okay, yeah,
okay.
Sorry.
It's almost the same as...
Do you
really think I wrote this?
There's a lot of copy and paste.
There's a lot of copying and pasting. You're right, Ben. I should have taken out the posterior.
No, I'm not making fun of you. I'm making fun of whoever wrote the article. That it's like, it is what you're saying. It's using fancier words when you could be simpler.
This one is not, this is not from... I did not do Wikipedia. Wikipedia was only the top, and even that was not Wikipedia. I went to a lot of scientific articles and stuff because I didn't want to bring.
I like how you're bragging about it. Yeah, you can read the words. I mean, like,
no, but I didn't want to go to fucking blog posts for this. I wanted to actually bring in because I don't want to be
Kipping.
Kipping. I wanted to go to Kipping. So the posterior. Anyway, this is the answer. So the probability that we are living in a base reality is almost the same as the probability that we are in a simulation, with the odds tilting in favor of base reality by just a smidgen.
Okay.
It's 50-50, essentially. Kipping had said, fuck you, Musk. There's no way to know for certain. Kipping took the agnostic route, which is, I would say, is cowardice.
Yeah. At least Musk has an interesting take.
He's just giving you an answer. Okay, so will we ever know? All this being said, some physicists say that we won't ever be able to prove definitively that we're not in a simulation because any evidence we could collect could itself be simulated evidence.
Right, exactly.
So it's exhausting to think about that.
Truly.
But somebody has to do the work of figuring out what's real. So far, they've discovered that it's impossible to model the physics of our universe on even the physics computer. But that could change, and do we trust if it doesn't? Mm-hmm. So what that means is, they've figured out that with our biggest computer, where we're at right now, we can't do that. We cannot create a simulation that's advanced enough to support this hypothesis. But
could somebody else?
Could somebody else? And you could argue that if this is a simulation, would they block us from being able to simulate other simulations to keep us from realizing that we're in a simulation?
Probably.
And I did write that part because I started having a little panic attack.
This really is, anxiety producing. Yeah, because it is so existential.
It actually kind of makes me feel better though, because I'm like, okay, if things are a simulation, then like when I have a problem or some issue in my life, I'm like, who cares? It's a simulation.
Yeah. Well, but then we can't escape it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, I come back to the argument. If I'm in some sort of fucking cow pod that robots are using to power their machines, and you woke me up and I woke up naked in a weird gel sack, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't bring me underground with you. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, for Kipping, there's a more obvious answer here. What he calls, what's Occam's razor.
Even more obvious than what he's been describing for the past 10 minutes.
So Occam's razor says that in the absence of other evidence, the simplest explanation is more likely to be correct. The simulation hypothesis is elaborate, presuming reality is nested upon reality, as well as simulated entities that can never tell that they are inside a simulation. Because it is such an overly complicated, elaborate model in the first place by Occam's razor, it really should be disfavored compared to the simple, natural explanation, Kipping says.
I think that's where I stand.
Yeah.
It's easier. Why fucking work yourself up in a tizzy if you straight up can't even prove it?
Right.
And I do blame Rick and Morty for making people think they're smart. Because I'm sure some people would be like, well, listeners be like, well, these people are fucking stupid. They've obviously never seen episode 6. But simulation proof. Here's some proof that proof is in quotes here, or at least theories or realities that would kind of give leans to like simulation rearing its ugly head.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The Mandela effect. And I was caught in this. Not the Mandela part, but the end. So some people claim to remember TV coverage of Nelson Mandela's death in the 1980s. In the 80s, you guys were in your mid-30s or 40s?
Sounds right.
So you guys should remember this happening. So even though he actually died in 2013, the Mandela effect is therefore supposedly proof that whoever's in charge of a simulation is changing the past. Or alternatively, this is evidence of parallel universes, and some individuals have crossed from one universe in which Mandela died in the 80s into ours, where he lived to age 95. Additional examples of this phenomenon include some remembering the name of the Berenstain Bears children's book series being spelled as Berenstein.
I love that theory because basically it's just thinking misremembering that they're Jewish.
Yeah.
Right? Stain is not a Jewish
sure
name.
You all want to misremember that. And others were calling a non-existent movie from the 90s called Shazam, starring the comedian Sinbad as a genie.
That's
which
a great one.
Is
Wait
me.
a minute. I thought that too.
No,
When I
there's a
read that
movie
this
starring
morning-
Shaq called Kazam.
No. But there was a Shazam with Sinbad.
There was definitely a Shazam with Sinbad.
I saw it with him as a little genie because I've seen that movie.
I've seen it.
I could show you the movie poster with fucking.
I'm telling you,
with
it's-
Sinbad as Shazam. I remember Sinbad as a genie. I remember it.
I remember it too.
I'm not making it up. I'm not doing a bit. I remember that movie poster.
And it doesn't exist.
It doesn't
It doesn't.
exist.
You're fucking lying to me.
With these Mandela effect examples, is that showing? I guess it's showing a couple things, but one thing is it's showing that the whoever the simulators are make mistakes.
Sorry, May's googling this right now.
Yeah. And it doesn't exist, but that people have mocked up
People
some
have
other
made
things.
it up, yeah.
The hell's this from then?
It's just him on a Tuesday night.
I guess Ben, you were saying, could they make mistakes if they're that advanced?
Is that kind of part of the idea that they're making errors, or
they're-
it's more
whether either they're making errors or it's like a blip or like a fucking malfunction, or also they're changing the past. And then there's also the multiverse argument, being that May and I, we come from a more advanced, kind of cooler Earth 2, and we came back to Earth 1. Right, May?
I remember the Sinbad thing too. I'm not just saying that to act cool and fit in with you guys. I really do remember it, but it's the Shaq one.
Okay, so
anyway.
here's another thing. It's like that there's no aliens. So we should probably have found evidence of extraterrestrials by now, right? Not so fast. Aliens would likely be far more technologically advanced than we are. The thinking goes, so the fact that we haven't located them suggests we live in a simulation they've figured out how to escape. Or maybe the computer we're in only has enough RAM to simulate one planetary civilization at a time. That kind of fucked with me a bit.
Huh.
That the simulation is only so advanced that they can only fucking handle one Earth.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, why? I don't know, Ben. I'm not a fucking scientist.
That is interesting.
How about this one? DNA that contains a computer virus. In
What?
2017, a multidisciplinary group of researchers at the University of Washington proved that they could embed malicious computer code into physical strands of DNA.
What?
Their aim was to show that computers working in gene sequencing were vulnerable to attack, but they may also have inadvertently revealed that what we perceive to be biological reality was in fact computer code all along. That's fucking
Interesting.
crazy.
That's insanity.
Well, that makes sense, right? I mean, no, I'm saying like there's a reason why you call it a computer virus because it works exactly like a virus. It like replicates itself and affects the code, and DNA is a code.
But how would that work to go into biological DNA? Wouldn't you? The argument that I guess we're also getting into territory where biology and science are one and the same. Science and magic, all that bullshit.
Biology and science.
There was also another thing where like we've also found, what is it, like something's Planck or something, where it's like we found the building block of the universe. We've been able to do that where it's outside of the existence of any physical thing. I should have written this down, but I feel also the idea of a simulation makes more sense than ghosts. Paranormal events are not hauntings or alien encounters, but glitches in the simulation.
That's interesting.
This theory is the one most explored on Reddit forums like Are We Living in a Simulation and r/glitch in the Matrix, where users explore big ideas and philosophy funneled into the details of the odd or the occult. This is what made me go to the Reddit pages, and one of them straight up was like, oh God, we're done here. So a storefront exists in a town one day, then it doesn't. Explanations include a slip between parallel timelines or a pop-up. A car passenger sees the word render in the sky, as if entering a new part of a video game. Elevators are a frequent setting for glitch stories. The jump between floors seems to encourage a slip within dimensions. I mean, Elisa Lam,
Whoa.
we just
Yeah,
covered something
yeah.
like that. Well, that was like
True.
fucking insane.
So weird. And I've also seen a bunch of fun like clickbait videos of celebrities and like it's like glitch in the Matrix or whatever. And someone will be like interviewing them and they're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, and they just glitch for a second.
I think a particularly fun one too is like when you see celebrities or something, or even people from history, they just keep popping up, like their face. It's like this, it's clearly the same person throughout history, or like they look a lot alike, and it's like they ran out of fucking,
They ran out of
people.
face.
They ran out of face
Shits.
simulations.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I guess my only issue with some of these theories is that it seems to be like people who believe in the supernatural versus people who don't. And like, fine, if you believe in ghosts or whatever, that's fine. And if you don't, that's fine. But if you do believe in the supernatural, why does that mean simulation? Because simulation is such a specific thing.
Well, because it's
why is it anything other than just, well, that's weird that not everything follows exactly physical laws.
That's science. That these people are sitting down thinking about things. I think this is the science community's answer to believing in the paranormal or the supernatural.
Interesting, yeah.
That's
instead of saying
science,
God.
Yeah, instead of saying God, instead of saying I believe
Ghosts
in fucking
entities and whatever,
Cyclops and all that bullshit.
Right. It's saying there's a bunch of
this.
supernatural things, and I'm going to make I guess you use the word hypothesis that connects them all, and that's the simulation hypothesis.
And that brings me to my next thing is like if you're somebody who believes hardcore in a simulation, and then I'm like, what about witchcraft? And you go, no, that's stupid. I would go, fuck you, because
right.
If we're opening the door, open the door completely. You know what I mean?
But the thing about the simulation theory is that the supernatural stuff might support the simulation theory, but it's not necessary for the simulation theory, because why not make a simulation that follows exactly scientific physical laws?
Or the flip would be, why can't I just fly out this window? Why can't I hack my code? That's the whole plot of the Matrix.
And I think that's right. Well, exactly. And I think that some, like, you were pointing out some like old ancient religion stuff says that you can, in some sense, not become a superhero, but you can break through the illusion.
Oh, I guess, wow. That's a really good connection, Ben, and I'm impressed by that. Like the idea of, I'm impressed because your stupidity usually wouldn't allow that to happen. But no, the idea of the idea of enlightenment being just kind of being aware of the simulation, because like the story of Buddhist monks being able to like balance themselves on a finger or shit like that, or even levitate, things like that. Is it the idea of a religious exceptionalism, or is it an idea of breaking the simulation?
Interesting.
That's insane. And this is also, I was in my bed this morning like
That's a lot.
I was losing my fucking mind.
Yeah.
All right. So
your brain just like folding over itself a million times.
The last little theory is that I didn't even have an edible yet. And the last little theory is that we're getting better at simulations. In 2014, the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics connected 8,000 computers to create a 350 million light-year simulation of our universe and digitally aged it over 13 billion years. That the Sims video game franchise has sold over 125 million copies in its first decade shows we're interested in playing with simulations too.
Yeah.
If and when a future version of humanity finds themselves with the ability to create more realistic simulations, it wouldn't be a surprise if they opted to use it.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And that does make sense.
Yeah.
And I think you can be even more general. It doesn't have to be The Sims. It could just be fiction in general. We love making up stories.
We love sci-fi.
We love sci-fi. But not even just sci-fi, just any random story where you make up characters.
I read this and I like immediately thought of the meme that was like, if they put to the test 100 dinosaurs versus like 1,000 ducks or something, the fight, and they simulated the fight between them, and you could see like this little, it's like rudimentary, but the computer, like all these dinosaurs fighting the chickens.
That would be fun.
It was funny.
Yeah,
I remember seeing that video and being like, this is fucking great. All right, so where does it all stand today?
Okay.
This is the conclusion. Ultimately, it appears we are indeed real, that this is some sort of reality, ... for now.
Okay.
So, but the immense potential of our capabilities as humans to advance technologies and create an authentic digital reality is undeniable. So yet it almost leaves us with more questions. How much longer will we be able to fully trust our senses? Or how long will it take before simulations become a full-blown reality in our everyday lives?
Wow. This is a heady episode.
This is insane. This is like an unsolved mystery that's like literally like, it's just a mystery of the universe.
Yeah,
mystery
we'll
of
never know.
reality. This is a reality mystery.
This is crazy.
This is wild.
I don't know anything about life. I do know that I'm not going to go back to work today.
Yeah, let me tell you something. How can you go back to your work?
Yeah, knowing that I'm in a simulation.
No,
My
thanks.
boss is like,
I'm going to go travel 45 minutes to do 5 minutes. Okay? Yeah. That's what I'm going to do instead.
My boss is like, where were you this afternoon? I'm like, don't you know?
You would say that.
You would say that. Who's telling you to say that?
Brings a whole new meaning to the term corporate drone.
Wow.
No, it's a great, but what is interesting to me is that it's a different episode, but it has ties to other episodes we have. Talks about aliens in particular, because the question that I have is, just because we are able to think of simulations and enjoy simulations, then we're projecting that there's some other being that must like it too.
Wow.
That's aliens really cool. And aliens is a similar thing, right? We like the last episode about the alien abduction, the way they describe it is like it's how humans would act.
And there's examples of people, quote unquote, you can attribute a lot of examples of things or mysteries or stuff from the past to things like this. Breaking the simulation. Alexander the Great was super advanced. Like, you know what I mean? Like Da Vinci drawing fucking spaceships before they ever existed, and planes and things.
Right.
It's
True.
like, were those guys just
beyond visionaries? Are they actually
or
on a
were they
different
just
plane?
like Agent whatever from the Matrix?
Or religious figures, right? Prophets.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what they
Prophets.
claim to be.
Yeah.
True.
What if like Jesus or like prophets and stuff like that were just like some fucker from this advanced civilization popping down here and just messing with us?
Right.
Man,
Yeah.
I mean, boy, did he.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy.
Way to go, asshole.
Wow, did he fuck some shit up?
But that's basically what a
Crusades.
religious figure is doing, is basically say that we're in a simulation.
What?
Although, essentially, most religions and even some like philosophies that you wouldn't necessarily consider a religion, like Buddhism or something like that, are essentially arguing this on
That
some
there
level.
is a next level.
Then
Yeah.
there's the whole argument of free will, right? So
Yeah.
that a Judeo-Christian God is saying like, well, you're in a simulation essentially, but I'm giving you free will. So you're not a computer. I'm not controlling you, but
Well, that's the
I
idea
am
of a
above
simulation with conscious
Yeah.
beings and just letting them, seeing what happens with them. They're just-
Okay.
I mean, that's God. That's a God. That's a God figure.
Yeah.
Should we go see the Ryan Reynolds film Free Guy after this?
Free
Because
Guy?
Isn't that
Ryan
isn't
Reynolds
that the
has
movie?
come up many, many times.
Ryan
Yeah.
Reynolds is
And
a glitch in the simulation.
And then after that, should we just watch Definitely Maybe? Because it's a delightful movie. It's not on theme.
Oh, all right. Let me tell you something. Usually we're like, which way do you think it is? I straight up don't know, and it's kind of
Yeah.
stressing me out.
It's stressing me out. It's giving me anxiety.
I don't. But at the end of the day, too, is I don't really see how much the answer affects the day to day.
Yeah, it doesn't really.
If we figure out we're in a simulation, and without figuring out how to, I guess, what's your next goal? To end the simulation? Does that end us, our existence?
I don't want to do that.
Because if we are just fucking Sims in a computer, that means we don't exist.
Right. I mean, I think the idea is just to get some.
Because the Matrix is our human bodies are still real, that the mind is in a simulation.
I think it depends on
I think a lot
the
of these
details
arguments
of the
are-
simulation.
yeah.
You're right. If it's like a kind of cold simulation, then that means that my life is even more meaningless than
it is.
I
Than it is
envision
already.
currently. Yeah. As opposed to if it's a more religious thing where it's like, oh, you're getting to heaven, or you have meaning for other reasons. You have, get reincarnated. Whatever the doctrine is, that's different. That gives my life purpose. But this seems kind of, if it's a Matrix thing. It's
What's
like, oh,
interesting
Jesus.
is that, like, not to bring back things to the CW, but I usually try to. The CW program, the 100.
You really bring up how many different shows?
I've seen a lot of CW teen dramas. In this show, the 100, though, it's anyway. It's like in the future, 100 kids get shot down to Earth because there was an apocalypse or whatever. Anyway, the last season, not the spoiler alert if you don't want to watch the show, but like it ends with like there's a massive being, this so advanced being that offers to collect you into their consciousness, and essentially this is all a test. So if this is like some advanced being, and the simulation is a test to collect us into their much more advanced consciousness, to see
Okay.
if anybody advances in the simulation enough to be worthy of that.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Good thing you said spoiler alert, by the way, because a lot of people are itching to check out the
It's on Netflix. And let me tell you something. It's a great show.
Oh my god. All right. Well, I think we were had.
We were had.
Okay.
Continue to be had.
See you in the next level.
All right. Bye, guys.